Hey, nobody told me this, and I paid the price. Most men walk blindly into emotional minefields, thinking intentions are enough. But if you don't understand female nature, if you don't build a solid masculine frame, and if you don't learn the power of emotional control, you'll keep repeating the same cycle, getting close, getting used, then getting discarded. And yeah, I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders and said, "Brother, there's a whole psychological game you're not even aware you're playing. This isn't about blaming women. It's about reclaiming your male identity and finally stepping into your purpose-driven life before another moment slips through your fingers. Because what you're about to learn could have saved you years of confusion, frustration, and quiet self-betrayal. Let's break down what I wish I had known and why it would have changed everything. If this resonates with you even a little, consider hitting that like button, dropping your thoughts in the comments, and sharing this with a brother who needs it. You never know how much clarity a simple video can bring into someone's life. We're going to unpack a hard truth here, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. The hidden cost of not understanding women early on. Most men don't realize it, but the moment you step into your first relationship, you're already negotiating with forces you don't understand. It's not just attraction, it's female nature, psychological triggers, and layers of unspoken expectations. And if you're not grounded in a solid masculine frame, you'll get swept away. Fast. It won't feel like a trap at first. It'll feel like validation, like you finally matter to someone. But what you don't see is that it's not really you she's responding to. Not yet. And that's where it starts to fall apart. See, when you don't understand emotional control, you become reactive. You start chasing her moods, trying to fix what's not broken, apologizing for things you didn't even do. You become emotionally available too fast, thinking it's romantic. But to her, it's unsettling. She feels it, the shift, the pressure, and suddenly the attraction fades. Why? Because you've unknowingly flipped the dynamic. You're seeking comfort, and she's craving sexual polarity. That tension between masculine and feminine is what fuels desire. Kill the tension, and you kill the interest. Simple as that. Now here's the part no one tells you. Most women don't even understand why they lose interest. They'll say, "I just need space," or "You're too nice." But deep down, it's about respect versus attraction. They can respect you as a human being and still not feel anything for you romantically. Because the emotional blueprint that triggers their desire runs deeper. And if you're too focused on validation seeking, you'll never access the part of her that responds to masculine energy. You'll be stuck performing, pleasing, and slowly losing yourself in the process. There's a hidden rule no one teaches young men. The less you understand how women test you emotionally, the more you'll fail those tests without even knowing they're happening. These aren't written exams. They're subtle. Tonal shifts, delayed texts, passive-aggressive comments. She's not doing it to be cruel. She's doing it instinctively. These are emotional tests, and she's watching your nonverbal signals, not your words. Fail enough of these without inner discipline, and you'll never make it past the emotional gate. Because to her, how you respond equals who you really are. You'll hear men say, "She changed." But what really changed was the way she perceived him after repeated emotional failures. When you don't hold your masculine boundaries, when you give in too quickly, when you're always available, she begins to sense something is off. Not consciously, but instinctively. And what she once saw as strength begins to look like softness. What felt like security turns into neediness. That shift is brutal. One minute, you're everything she wanted, and the next, she's not returning your calls. It's not random, it's patterned behavior. Think back. How many times have you tried to talk your way back into her heart? Long texts, emotional confessions, apologies for being too much. None of it worked, right? That's because strategic silence speaks louder than words in moments of imbalance. When she senses your pullback, not out of punishment, but out of emotional detachment and mental clarity, that's when curiosity is reignited. That's when she wonders where your center is, and whether or not she still has access to it. That's how you begin to reclaim emotional leverage without begging for it. Let me tell you about Marcus. At 22, he fell hard for a woman who lit up his world. Funny, smart, effortlessly beautiful. He gave her his time, energy, attention, everything. He thought that's what love was, but she slowly pulled away. No fights, just coldness, confusion, and eventually silence. It broke him. Until one day, after months of obsessing, he stumbled onto a forum where men were discussing male identity and alpha mindset. He realized he had no self-awareness, no inner discipline, and no idea how power dynamics worked in real relationships. Marcus didn't become cold. He became clear. He started rebuilding from the inside out. He stopped chasing texts and started building his masculine frame. Instead of trying to decode every mood swing, he worked on his purpose-driven life. getting in shape, creating routine, developing financial focus. He didn't cut women off. He just stopped putting them at the center of his world. And guess what? The same woman who ghosted him came back. Why? Because now she felt the shift. He wasn't emotionally available, he was emotionally anchored, and that changes everything. When you anchor your presence in emotional control, you create a gravitational pull. Not because you're playing games, but because you finally stopped giving away your center. Women sense this. They can't always explain it, but they feel it. Your silence isn't passive, it's potent. Your boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. You don't chase attention, you cultivate energy. This isn't about faking detachment, it's about building real self-respect. The kind that doesn't need to be announced. It just is. And when it's real, the dynamic shifts entirely, without a single word. Here's what no one's telling you. Female nature responds not to your words, but to your structure. You can be kind, funny, generous, but if there's no masculine frame, you'll be her maybe, not her obsession. Women don't test men they don't care about. They test men to measure them, to feel them. And if you don't understand the attachment patterns behind their behavior, you'll interpret every cold response as rejection, when in fact, it might be a signal. But only the man with mental clarity knows how to read that signal right. We've been sold a dream that vulnerability alone earns love. But here's the truth. It only works if it's backed by strength. When you lead with emotional vulnerability without a foundation of inner discipline, you're not opening up. You're spilling. And that doesn't create closeness. It creates emotional weight she didn't sign up to carry. So, no, you don't have to hide your heart. But reveal it like a man who's done the work, who understands timing, who knows when to speak, and when to let strategic silence do the heavy lifting. Think of your masculine energy like a flame. It warms, it draws in, but it doesn't chase the wind. The moment you let your sense of self be dictated by how much attention she gives you, you lose the game. Because now you're not leading, you're reacting. And in the world of sexual polarity, reaction is weakness, presence is power. When you hold your masculine boundaries, when you stop adjusting your tone, values, or plans just to please her, she starts feeling you again. Respect comes back. And with it, attraction. Most men confuse people-pleasing with kindness. They say yes to things they hate, agree with things they don't believe, and think it makes them good men. But here's the kicker. It doesn't build trust. It builds resentment, both in you and in her, because validation-seeking looks like flattery but smells like insecurity. And women pick up on it like wolves pick up on fear. That's why you must choose high-value behavior, saying no when needed, walking away when it's right, standing firm even when it costs you attention. That's power. This shift isn't about becoming a jerk. It's about becoming a centered man. A man who knows his mission, who isn't rattled by every emotional wave, who doesn't panic when a woman pulls away. That's the man who owns emotional leverage. That's the man who sees beyond the surface. He doesn't explode. He doesn't explain. He observes. He calibrates. He leads. And ironically, that's the exact energy women crave but rarely articulate. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to stop outsourcing your confidence to how she feels today. Let's break something open here. It's not just about understanding her. It's about understanding what you allow, what you reinforce, and what you communicate without even realizing it. Your posture, your tone, your nonverbal signals, your energy when things don't go your way. It all tells her a story, and the man who hasn't examined his own patterns will keep repeating the same dynamic, no matter how different the woman is. Because without self-awareness, there is no transformation, just emotional déjà vu in different outfits. And the cost? Your identity. Now we're entering a deeper layer, and what I'm about to share might sting, not because it's harsh, but because it's honest. And once you hear it, you won't be able to unhear it. So buckle in. And here, a pause with intention. If this kind of clarity is already pulling you out of old mindsets and showing you things you've never been taught, then stop what you're doing. Hit that like button right now, subscribe, and share this video with one man in your circle who needs to wake up. Don't let this be just another interesting video you forget tomorrow. Let it be the trigger that changes how you show up, for real. Because what's coming next? It's what I really wish someone had told me years ago. Every man reaches a crossroads. One path is familiar. Explain more, try harder, bend further. The other path, it's unfamiliar. It requires emotional detachment, not as a game, but as a principle. It means letting go of needing to be liked, needing to be chosen, needing to be enough in her eyes. Because once you stop living from a place of emotional hunger, you stop chasing scraps of attention. You begin acting from a place of clarity, from mental clarity. And that's when your energy becomes unmistakably masculine. Let's get practical. You're in a situation where she's gone cold. Do you text? Do you explain? No. You wait. You reflect. You lean into strategic silence and let the silence speak volumes. During that time, you don't sit around sulking. You build, you journal, you train, you reconnect with your purpose-driven life. You remind yourself that a woman's approval is not your oxygen. Your breath comes from your mission, your rituals, your personal discipline. The world doesn't pause just because she did. You keep moving. That's inner discipline in action. Here's something most men never hear. The moment you over-explain yourself to a woman, you're subconsciously placing her above you. You're auditioning for a role she hasn't even offered. And when you do that, you lose your emotional leverage. Because power isn't always about being louder, it's about being less available for nonsense. So next time you feel the urge to defend your every move, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to be understood, or am I trying to be accepted? One leads to growth, the other to self-erasure. There's a reason the term alpha mindset exists. It's not about being dominant, it's about being self-led. The man who knows what he stands for, who doesn't crumble when challenged, who doesn't overreact when rejected. That man doesn't need to force attraction. His grounded presence does the talking. And when he walks away, it's not to make a scene. It's because his masculine boundaries were crossed and he honors them. That's leadership. That's attraction. That's what rewires the entire power dynamic between you and any woman. Let's be real. Most guys have no idea how they're being perceived. They focus on what they say, not how they show up. Your posture, your eye contact, the way you respond under pressure. Those are nonverbal signals that women decode instantly. You don't need a perfect script, you need congruence, that alignment between who you are and how you carry yourself. That's what builds respect versus attraction, because a man who respects himself doesn't seek approval, he gives presence. And that presence makes women lean in, not pull away. So what does this look like in the real world? You're at dinner and she makes a passive-aggressive comment. The old you might joke it off or shrink. But now, you meet her gaze, calm, unshaken. You say nothing, just a slight pause. That pause is psychological power. It says, I heard that, and I'll decide how to respond. Not every moment needs a reaction. Sometimes stillness is louder than anger. And when you stop rewarding bad behavior with validation, the entire attachment pattern begins to shift, without you lifting a finger. Women don't want perfect men. They want present men. Men who own their truth without broadcasting it. Who stay grounded under pressure. Who know when to lean in and when to pull back. That balance of confidence shifts is what keeps attraction alive. It's not a line, it's a rhythm. A dynamic dance between closeness and distance. And if you can master that rhythm without losing yourself in it, you'll stop guessing what she wants. Because you'll finally understand what you bring to the table and how rare that energy really is. Let's shift the lens for a second. What if the real issue isn't women at all, but the mirror you've been avoiding? Most men never take a real inventory of their behavior. They don't question their people-pleasing. They don't track the moments they abandon their own voice just to keep the peace. But once you start seeing those patterns, those subtle moments where you trade authenticity for attention, you begin reclaiming your power. And the first step to self-awareness? Watching your own actions when you're desperate to keep someone around. If you don't define your values, someone else will define them for you. That's the silent danger in modern relationships. You bend once, then again, and suddenly you've lost your male identity without realizing it. You're adapting, adjusting, editing yourself, all in the name of connection. But real connection only happens when two people are honest about who they are. So if you're not standing in your truth, she's not attracted to you. She's attracted to the version of you that fits her comfort, and that version never lasts. Let's bring this down to earth. Imagine a guy who constantly checks her stories, analyzes her likes, rereads old texts looking for clues. That's not love. That's anxiety in disguise. That's a man out of sync with his inner discipline. And no, cutting her off isn't the solution. Elevating your standards is. When your time, your focus, and your energy become sacred, you stop leaking them. You stop offering them to women who haven't earned them. That's the shift. From emotional craving to intentional connection. Women respect what costs them effort. That's the truth most men ignore. If you give her everything, your time, your attention, your emotional availability, without requiring anything in return, you train her to devalue it. Not out of malice, but because human psychology works that way. What we earn, we value. What's handed to us, we overlook. That's why high-value behavior includes restraint, mystery, standards. You're not being cold, you're being calibrated. And that calibration makes her wonder, pursue, and choose, instead of just receiving without investment. You don't have to become emotionally numb to protect yourself. You just need better filters. Every man needs to learn the difference between emotional vulnerability and emotional exposure. Vulnerability says, here's who I am, and I'm okay with your response. Exposure says, please accept me or I'll fall apart. The first builds intimacy. The second builds imbalance. And imbalance is the soil where resentment grows. So share yourself, but only from a place of internal wholeness, not from the need to be filled. Here's something radical. Women aren't your purpose. They're your reflection. They show you where you stand as a man. Are you grounded or reactive? Clear or confused? Centered or clingy? Her behavior often mirrors yours in ways you don't see right away. And that mirror, it's brutal, but powerful. Because once you see it, you can adjust. You can own your part. And from there, build something stable, not out of fear, but out of confidence, shifts that say, I'm evolving, and I welcome a partner who's evolving too. It's funny how clarity changes everything. The same woman who once felt like your oxygen now becomes a choice, not a necessity. You don't hate her, you don't chase her, you simply see her as she is, not as your fantasy. That's emotional control, that's freedom. And it's not bitter, it's liberating. Because once you're no longer enslaved to attention, you begin attracting from wholeness. You move differently, speak differently. Even your silence carries weight. And when that happens, something unexpected shows up. Peace. Peace doesn't come from controlling women, it comes from mastering yourself. That's the part young men rarely hear. They think if they say the right thing or act the right way, she'll stay. But the real win is building a life so full, so aligned, that you're no longer shaken when someone exits it. That's the mark of a man who's passed through the fire. A man with masculine frame strong enough to hold space for himself, for others, and for a relationship built on real connection, not survival tactics. If there's one thing to remember, it's this. Women are drawn to men who are already moving, already becoming, already aligned. You don't have to perform. You just have to live your truth so fully that it radiates without explanation. That kind of energy doesn't beg, it attracts. It doesn't demand attention, it commands presence. And from that place, love doesn't feel like a risk. It feels like an extension of your purpose-driven life, your male identity, your refusal to abandon yourself again, no matter how tempting the distraction. It took Marcus years to unlearn his patterns, years of heartbreak, confusion, and pretending to be someone he wasn't. But the moment he stopped outsourcing his power, everything shifted. He stopped explaining himself, stopped negotiating his value. He became magnetic, without trying. Not because he changed for women, but because he finally became a man worthy of his own respect. And the women who once left, they noticed. Some even returned. But now he had choices. That's what happens when you operate from self-respect, not scarcity. So here's the door. You can keep chasing, guessing, and shrinking. Or you can rebuild, slowly, deliberately. You can study your patterns, strengthen your masculine boundaries, choose your company, build your mission. And next time, when a woman tests you, questions you, or pulls away, you'll breathe. You'll stand tall, you'll smile, not from arrogance, but from psychological power. Because this time, you know, you've lived, you've learned. And now, you lead. Let me ask you something. How much longer are you going to repeat the same emotional patterns, hoping for different results? Because now you know, you've seen the blueprint. The question is, will you actually use it? You can either keep adjusting yourself to be chosen, or you can choose yourself fully and watch how the world begins to respond to that version of you. Start observing your patterns. Track the moments you shrink, chase, or explain, and flip the script. Here's your move. Drop this in the comments right now. I refuse to abandon myself again. Say it out loud if you have to. Own it. And hey, thank you, truly. If you've stayed with me until now, it means you're not just curious. You're ready. Ready to break the loop, ready to become the man you were meant to be. If this resonated with you, do me a favor. Like the video, share it with a brother who needs it, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. We're just getting started.